So it's the beginning of 2026, and in this video, I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'm going to walk you through my full longevity protocol for this year. I'm going to share my results from last year, 2025, and I'm going to share with you what are my goals for this year, how can I improve some of my biomarkers and health metrics, and I'm going to walk you through how do I think about these things, how do I structure my own protocols, what kind of biomarkers I measure, what kind of biomarkers I think are more important than others. And I think that's why you will also just learn a lot from this video. Not only will you learn about what I do, you will also learn about how can you structure your own health and longevity protocol based on this information here. So let's begin with my 2025 results. I got a list of some of these highlight results. I'm not going to go through all these hundreds of biomarkers that I measured 2025, but I'm going to just list some of the more relevant and more interesting ones, such as my age. So I had my 31st birthday in September 2025, and I'm now officially in my 30s, which means that I'm at kind of the peak of my physical performance. So for males, in your early 30s, that's where your strength and muscle mass at least peak. Your bone density peaks. Your VO2 max naturally has already declined compared to someone in their 20s. That's when your VO2 max naturally peaks. But in other aspects of physical fitness, that's where your peak is in your early 30s. So I am supposed to be in my physical peak in terms of fitness. And it does reflect as well in my certain fitness markers like VO2 max. So my VO2 max is in the range of 60 to 66, which would definitely put me in the top 1% of the general population, even greater than that. If you were to just look at the general population, then that would even be like 0.5%, 0.1%, depending on the group. Obviously, it's not still like elite athlete level. Elite athletes might have a VO2 max of 70s, but 60 to 66 is still very good. Pull-ups. So I think the pull-ups is one of the best measurements or tests for upper body strength because it also considers your body weight. So if you are very heavy, even if it's pure muscle, your ability to do pull-ups will be slightly lower. So pull-ups is a good litmus test for gauging your upper body strength plus your body weight, making sure that you're just not too heavy. So body weight, muscle mass, etc., they all have this U-shaped curve. If you're too skinny, too frail, too low body weight, that's harmful. You can increase your risk of future hip fractures and frailty. If you're overweight, even if it's muscle, then that is harmful. It's going to wear down your organs. So having very high muscle strength, such as being able to do pull-ups, I think is a very good indicator that your body composition is in check. You don't have too much body fat. You're not insanely heavy, and you're also relatively strong by doing a lot of your own body weight exercise. Visceral fat, it's obviously this internal fat around the organs and liver inside the muscles, but it is mostly an indicator of your metabolic health, and it is a risk factor for heart disease as well. So my visceral fat ranges in the 54 to 150 grams, which is very low, and it would definitely be in the top 1% of the population in terms of how low it is. CRP as well. CRP is a marker that different labs, they cut off at different points. Some labs cut it off at 0.5, others at 0.2, etc., 0.1. I've had a very sensitive result with CRP, with the lab cutting off, it has counted it at 0.01, which is extremely low, close to zero, pretty much as close to zero as you can get. And that will also put me in the top 1%, again, even greater than that. So the CRP is a marker of systemic inflammation, and I think that it is a good indicator of overall health because inflammation is at the root of pretty much all chronic diseases. And what we do know is that inflammation definitely drives aging as well. ApoB, so this reflects particle count of lipoproteins specifically, and it's mostly a risk factor for heart disease. So mine, 58 milligrams per deciliter, is also a very good result, would put me in the top 1%. Triglycerides, so these are also a good indicator of metabolic health, mostly your insulin sensitivity. If you have good metabolic health, then your triglycerides would be lower. It means that your body is utilizing the fat for fuel. and it's not accumulating in the bloodstream. So high amounts of triglycerides in the blood will lead to insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome, and it also drives visceral fat gain. So my very low triglyceride levels would also explain some of the reasons I have very low visceral fat. And I have such low triglycerides despite eating slightly higher carb intake, which is often thought to be not possible, but clearly shown that it is possible. So it's a matter of more energy balance and insulin sensitivity rather than how many carbohydrates are you eating. So phenoage is one of these experimental biological age clocks. It's calculated from certain blood markers such as albumin, CRP, glucose, and others, 10 of them in total. And this calculation would put my biological age at 12 to 16, somewhere in that range. Obviously, it's not stagnant. It fluctuates every day, every week based on the blood markers, but in that range from the tests that I've done in 2025. Now, obviously, it's not mean that I actually have a biology of a 12-year-old or a 16-year-old, but it just means that my blood markers are in good spot. So here's a snapshot of a more comprehensive blood marker panel I did in May 2025, and the majority of the kind of more vital groups of biomarkers came back in green. And I'm going to talk about the blood marker results later in this video. Now let's move on with the different categories of biomarkers and health that are relevant. Body composition, so muscle mass, fat mass. In 2025, this was the beginning of the year, January. This was somewhere in the middle, and I deliberately bulked a little bit. I tried to gain muscle just so I could support exercise. So I went from around 79 kilograms to 83 kilograms. Now this was more muscle memory because even earlier than that, like 2020, 2021, during the lockdown period, I actually was around 86 kilograms. So I was, nothing else to do at home than to bulk and to try to build more muscle. So I was at 86 kilograms with not as lean as this, but still relatively lean. So this is just muscle memory that my body's regaining some of that old muscle that I had before, which is a very easy way to build muscle back. If you ever stop training for a little bit and then you start to do it again. But nowadays I kind of sell at around 80 kilograms. So I did a positive body recomposition change. I lost some body fat. I gained a little bit of muscle mass, mostly through muscle memory. So I gained at 83 kilograms. I lost some of the body fat, and now I'm around 81 kilograms. So let's talk about my goals. What are my goals now for body composition? So my visceral fat, as I said, is around 54 to 150 grams. My goal is to just maintain it. So visceral fat is obviously you still need in some amounts. There's a healthy amount of visceral fat that you need to, shield the organs, to protect. It's like 0% body fat isn't good. You won't live without any body fat. The same applies to visceral fat. You're never going to have zero visceral fat, or at least it's not going to be healthy. So 54 is extremely low. I think it might be too low for optimal health. So 150 grams is decent. 150 grams I had during the mid bulk when I was 83 kilograms, which is still very impressive, because if you were to bulk, you usually will see an increase in visceral fat. When I was this 86 kilograms, I didn't do a DEXA scan back then, but I would presume my visceral fat was probably around 400, 500, which is kind of the average for the general population. For the average general population, male in their late 20s, early 30s, they would probably have 400, 500 grams of visceral fat. And someone who has less than that, let's say 300, then they are already a healthier individual than the general population. As a general rule of thumb, you want to have your visceral fat below 300, in my opinion. So somewhere in the range of 200 to 300 is good. If it's below 200, such as 150 grams, then that's extremely good result. Body fat percentage, so I'm around 10%, and I intend to maintain it. I'm not going to plan to bulk. I'm not going to plan to lose body fat specifically. Maybe, during some periods I'll just lose a little bit of body fat, but I'm just going to maintain it. I think 10% is a very healthy spot for males. So for males, somewhere between 8 to 12, I think, is the sweet spot. 10% is a good middle ground. As a male, you definitely want to be below 15%. Below 10% is a bit harder to sustain. Just in terms of food intake, you need to restrict food intake a bit more. And, just being too skinny can also be harmful. So 10%, 10 to 12%, I think, is the sweet spot for males. Over 15% is you're starting to look a bit chubby in terms of that. For males, it's very interesting. body fat percentage and just body composition matters a lot more for male longevity than it does for females, based on the research. So for males, anything above 15% is associated with increased mortality, and below 15% is better. For females, it doesn't matter that much. So first of all, women have generally higher body fat to begin with, but anything between 20 to 30% doesn't really appear to matter for mortality risk. So it's a kind of a flat line. If it's below that, then that can indicate higher risk due to frailty, mostly, and low bone density. But if it's too high, over 30, 35%, then that's just in the obesity category, which makes sense. So 20 to 30 for women and less than 15 for men. I would say 10 to 12 is the most optimal for men. Muscle mass, so you can measure muscle mass as well. As I said, if your muscle mass is too high, then that can still be more counterproductive for maximal lifespan. Short-term survival, yes, higher muscle mass can be more useful, but if we're talking about maximal longevity, like 110 years of age, then obviously there's not going to be any bodybuilders at that age. So you do need muscle mass. The general population probably is a bit under-muscled. Having more muscle would improve your metabolic health, your visceral fat, your other health markers. But obviously you don't want to become a strong powerlifter or a fat powerlifter or a bodybuilder, etc. So my goal right now is maintain. I think I have a perfect muscle mass for longevity for my goals. And I'm just going to focus on strength and performance otherwise. So I'm not specifically trying to bulk or gain muscle. And my appendicular lean mass index, which measures the amount of muscle in your arms and legs, is 10 kilograms per square meter. So you can measure it. I'm going to share the graph showing what does it actually mean. But that will put me in the top 5% of individuals in terms of muscle mass, this 10 kilogram per square meter. Bone mineral density is also very important. I think an underrated aspect of longevity is bone density. And mine is 1.5 for 1 grams per cubic centimeters. You can also do it with a DEXA scan. And that would put me around the top 5% of individuals. Interestingly, bone density peaks in your 30s. So biologically speaking, my muscle mass and bone density would be at their peak right now at the age of 31. But because I'm not like your average general population individual, I am a lot healthier. I do a lot more things to improve my muscle and bone density. Then it's reasonable that I'll be able to maintain it for at least for the next 10 years, maybe, and possibly even increase it. There's no reason why I wouldn't be able to do that if I wanted to. I do think that bone mineral density is possible to increase for me a little bit, but I'm not specifically, trying to do that. I'm not trying to specifically gain mass or gain muscle, which would also increase my bone density by doing that. So here are some of the screenshots from the tests as well to prove that, that actually the results are real. So liver fat, so 1.5%, that's an extremely good result. That will also put me maybe top 1% of individuals, top 5% individuals, somewhere between that. A normal healthy liver fat percentage is like 2 to 3% for the average person. If it's above 3%, then that's considered to be fatty liver, stage 1. So 1.5% is slightly leaner than the general population, which makes sense. And the visceral fat, somewhere the 54. Bone density, this is from a DEXA scan. So as you can see, my bone density is higher than the average. This middle line here is the average, the median, and I'm above that. So I'm, somewhere around like the top 5% in terms of bone mass for people of my age in their early 30s. So this DEXA scan specifically outlined the different parts of my body as well, left arm, right arm, spine, pelvis, etc. So how much bone density do I have? And interestingly, my head has the highest bone density of all my body parts. So all the other body parts are like 1.5, 1.6, 1.2, but my head is 2.1. So a significantly higher bone density in my skull for some reason than other body parts. And my total body bone density, so these Z-score and T-score, these are like standard deviations above the norm. So I'm 1.3 and 1.2 standard deviations above the norm for my age and the people in their 30s, which is where bone density peaks biologically in the general population. Appendicular lean mass index. So this one reflects the muscle mass in your arms and legs. As I said, mine is 10 from the last test. So this would put me right here, not in the top 3%, but yeah, like in the top 5%, something like that. And as you can see, in the general population, muscle mass declines with age, but the early 30s is the natural peak for males. So I'm at the top 5% with muscle mass. If your appendicular lean mass index is 7 for males, that is considered the sarcopenia threshold, which means that you have low muscle mass and low muscle strength. So in people below this 7 number have a high risk of diabetes, high risk of hip fractures, high risk of dying overall due to the sarcopenia. So you want to keep your appendicular lean mass index above the 7 threshold for as long as possible. And for women, it's 5.5. So obviously women have lower muscle mass, so their threshold is also lower, which is when they can be considered sarcopenic. But for women, the muscle mass decline is not that significant compared to males. So for women, the muscle mass can be more stable. It's not declining as the same way as it does for men. I want to take a quick break to let you know about my favorite wellness devices, which are the bond charge red light therapy devices. You've probably seen many of your favorite longevity influencers using these red light therapy devices, but do they actually work? Yes, they do. Red light therapy has been shown to have many benefits on skin anti-aging, hormone optimization, pain management, and even exercise performance. I use my device every day for 15 minutes, especially during the winter months when there's not much sunlight. It increases my energy in the morning and makes my skin glow. Just check out the testimonials on the bond charge website for the before and after pictures of other people. Most red light therapy devices don't have the right wavelengths of light, which might mean you're not getting the claimed benefits. Bond Charge uses the exact wavelengths of light used in research, and they also have near-infrared light that's beneficial to the joints. Head over to bondcharge.com and use the code SIIM, S-I-I-M, for a 15% discount. All right, let's talk about exercise. So exercise is a huge part of my protocol. I think a lot of my biomarker results, my other just health results are due to me focusing a lot on exercise. I think that has one of the best effects on your overall long-term health and survival. So let's start with some of the stats. Currently, pull-ups, 33. I have a video on my channel. You can check it out. 33 pull-ups for my 31st birthday. I've done 33, and then I did 31 pull-ups with complete dead hang pause at the bottom as well. So if someone says that it's not good form or that I'm just doing half reps, then check out the video. I lock out every rep with the full elbows, and I actually lock out the shoulders as well, the scapula. So 31 dead hang pull-ups at the age of 31, which was a goal for me to have, and 33 as well, which was done in another time. So that would definitely put me in like top 1% of upper body strength relative to body weight in terms of being able to do pull-ups. Back squat, so barbells back squat, I think that is also one of the best just resistance training exercises and a strength test because it's a very functional movement. A squat is something that you should be able to do for as long as possible, and a squat requires you to have very good core strength, very good leg strength, very good back strength. Even neck strength to a certain extent. So the back squat, a heavy back squat is just a full body exercise. Really if we're being honest, then it's more than just a leg exercise. And it's such a functional exercise. And I think that is very important. So my current number is 170 kilograms, which is below 400 pounds. And that would put maybe like in the top 10%. Obviously, yes, there's a lot of fitness people who can lift 200 kilos with squat or even more than that. So this number isn't like significantly impressive in the fitness community, but it obviously is a good result in the general population. So, and also all things being considered, I'm not some like very heavy individual or like I'm lean. So when we're talking about health and longevity, then you just shouldn't focus on one single biomarker. You shouldn't just focus on just the VO2 max or just the back squat or just CRP or just albumin or just whatever biological age test. You need to look at all of these markers and find a balance, or just wager all these markers and look at the holistic picture. And I also actually don't want to build massive legs because I'm more like a calisthenics athlete. I like to do more calisthenics, and I've already had a higher back squat before when I was this 86 kilogram individual a few years ago, I was able to actually do like 185 kilogram squat. So this is not my like all-time best, but it's what I'm currently working with because of now I'm 6 kilos lighter than I was before. Grip strength, so measuring it with the dynamometer, 135 kilograms combined, so 67 kilograms each arm. That will put me maybe like a top 5%. Now, yeah, the grip strength is kind of a meme that working on your grip and training your grip isn't going to make you live longer. But it's just a very easy test you can use to gauge your upper body strength. Pull-ups, you could also use pull-ups. I think pull-ups can actually be a better indicator than grip strength testing, because pull-ups also look at your body fat percentage, your mobility, your just coordination, all these other things. So pull-ups arguably are a better marker than grip strength, but we can still look at the grip strength. There's just a lot more studies on grip strength and mortality risk. VO2 max, so cardiorespiratory fitness, one of the most powerful biomarkers of survival. So people with a higher VO2 max have significantly lower mortality, significantly lower risk of other chronic diseases. And the reason is that people with a high VO2 max just exercise a lot. So it just highlights that people who exercise more tend to live longer and have lower rates of these chronic diseases. Not specific that you need to have a specific number for your VO2 max. The same with grip strength. Training your grip strength isn't going to make you live longer, but if you exercise regularly, you will have a higher grip strength, which means that healthier people have higher grip strength. The same way with VO2 max, people who exercise more, people do more specifically cardiorespiratory fitness and cardiovascular exercise. The training volume that you accumulate to have a high VO2 max is what mediates these health benefits. And that would put me in the top 1%, maybe even lower than that, like top 0.1 or something in the general population, if we were to exclude athletes. Athletes have a VO2 max of maybe in their 70s. Some Norwegian cross-country skiers, like the best of the best in the world, they'll have it in their 80s or 90s. Resting heart rate, so how fast my heart beats when I'm resting, laying on the bed, 38. So resting heart rate is interesting that it declines with age in extreme like longevity. So people who are very old, they might have a lower resting heart rate. So it's not necessarily that having a lower resting heart rate means that you're aging faster or that you're biologically old. It's just that as you get older, your heart gets loses some of its function. And the key thing here is the HRV. So if you have a low resting heart rate but a high HRV, that means that's the perfect combination, because it means your low resting heart rate is due to your improved cardiac fitness and overall health. Low HRV and low resting heart rate is the bad combo, because it means that it's more reflective of the aging phenotype, because HRV declines with age as well. So, but mine is 100, generally would put me also in the top 1% with HRV metrics in the general population. With HRV, it's more important to pay attention to the trends. The same with all these markers. What's the trend line? Is it getting worse or is it getting better over time? If your HRV stays stable, even if it's, let's say, 50 or 30, then that's not necessarily a bad thing. It matters more if it's getting worse or getting better over time. Again, some receipts, VO2 max testing 66. Now, to be frank with you, then this was done in 2023, so that was 2 years ago. But I've also had others in the 60s since then. This is just the best result of all time. And since then, I've just dialed down some of the VO2 max training because it's hard to maintain. It's hard to maintain a lot of hours with cardio exercise. Heart rate 38, HRV over 100. Breath rate, so how fast you breathe during a sleep. That's also actually an interesting marker that, again, if you're healthier, your breathing rate is a bit slower rather than fast. You're more obese, you're unfit, your heart will beat faster, and you'll also breathe faster. So let's say if you're above 16 breaths per minute, then that will be in like the bad category. Grip strength, so just squeezing the dynamometer. So one thing about grip strength is the imbalance between left and right arm. So if there's a big discrepancy between your left and right arm, then that is associated also with increased mortality. My results are pretty much stable they're around the same. So there's no statistical difference between these results. So that's a good thing. So that's just to keep in mind. If there's a huge discrepancy between your left and right arm, then that is associated with some health problems. Now, what are my goals for 2026? So, objectively, I am in very good fitness. I have very good fitness. So there's not that much that I could work on as long as I wasn't, I don't want to sound arrogant, but I don't want to become like an athlete. So that I don't see fitness as something that you just keep progressing linearly, that you just need to keep getting better and better and better. At some point you just need to maintain, right? And you need to also look at your nutrition, your sleep, your recovery, and other relationships and those kind of things. But I do have some interesting goals for 2026. So, my best pull-ups are 33. I'm around 170 kilograms with a squat. My VO2 max is maybe in the low 60s. And here are some like ambitious goals I have in the fitness department. And it's kind of a symbolic, interesting result. Trying to get like 40 pull-ups, 400-pound squat, a 4-minute mile, and a 40-minute 10K run. It would be just cool to have like this ultimate hybrid achievement that you can do, elite level pull-ups, elite level running, and then the 400-pound squat. Yes, it's elite compared to the general population, but it's not really elite in like the powerlifting circle. But yeah, it would be just a symbolic, nice achievement to have that I was able to do this at least once in my life. I was able to do 40 pull-ups, 400-pound squat, 4-minute mile, and 40-minute 10K run. That is a pretty ambitious goal because, going from 33 pull-ups to 40 pull-ups, it's much harder than going from 5 pull-ups to 12 pull-ups, right? It's very easy to go from 5 pull-ups to 12 pull-ups or even 20 pull-ups, but it's going to be much harder to go from 33 to 40. But I think it's possible. I think I have it in me to be able to do 40 pull-ups at some point with some specific training. So the pull-ups is easy. It's a realistic goal. The squat is also easy. I'm very close to it already. I just need a few months of some specific training, and muscle memory will kick in, and I'll be able to get the 400-pound squat with also relative ease. The 4-minute mile, though, is gonna be the hard part. So, we've all heard about the story of Danister breaking the 4-minute mile record, and it's like this, very legendary story. And 4-minute mile is something that, now thousands of athletes have already repeated, but it's not like that, every person in your high school, or like not every high school had a person who broke the 4-minute mile. So it is still a very prestigious achievement to have. Not everyone, not even all athletes are able to do it. So for me to be able to do a 4-minute mile would require me to be very committed and dedicated to training for that. Now, I don't really like running that much. I've never been like a full runner or anything like that. So for me to be able to do a 4-minute mile, I would need to really train super long. It's not going to probably able to be possible within 6 months or 12 months. It probably requires at least 1.5 years of very committed training. But the 40-minute 10K run is, I think, pretty possible for me to do. So these are kind of like goals I could have for 2026. These are kind of just like side quests, fun achievements to have. And I think if I were to achieve this, if I were to do this 40 pull-ups, 400-pound squat, 4-minute mile, 40-minute 10K run, I would probably be probably the only person in the world who's ever done this, if I were to do this. Because I've never seen anyone else actually do it. There might, obviously, if it becomes popular, there will be more people repeating it. But I would probably be one of the first people to ever do this. Kind of a fun quest to have. Grip strength. So I do think I'd like to increase my grip strength a little bit because I like forearm exercises. It's going to be also mandatory part for me to get to the 40 pull-ups. If my grip strength is stronger, I'm able to hold on to the bar a bit better. I'm going to get less fatigued. So increasing grip strength is going to be the byproduct of me doing the 40 pull-ups. My VO2 max, I'm going to maintain. Now, I don't specifically need a higher VO2 max to run the 4-minute mile. If I had a VO2 max of 70, then it would make it easier, probably a little bit. But running is a lot more about the form and just the specificity. I just need to get better at running, not necessarily having a higher VO2 max. I think my VO2 max is adequate for a 4-minute mile. It wouldn't hurt, but I think the more important aspect is the actual form and the skill of running. Resting heart rate, I'm going to maintain it 38. I don't think I need to get it lower. I wouldn't like it to get increased either, but I'll maintain around 36, 38, less than 40 is a good range, I think, for me. HRV, I'm going to maintain as well around 100. I'm not really deliberately trying to increase my HRV. It's, just useful to gauge my exercise load and my training status. If I'm overtrained, the HRV is going to go down. If I'm gaining too much weight, it's going to go down. If it's increasing, then it's a good sign. It means I'm adequately recovered. So what is the plan? What was my exercise plan for 2025? So I had a very simple exercise routine. So 3 to 4 times a week, I do resistance training, push, pull, leg split. And 2025, I was doing mostly calisthenics for the upper body at least. So pull-ups, dips, handstand push-ups, planche push-ups, those kind of things. And I am trying to focus more on the strength side of things because I'm not necessarily trying to add mass. So I'm using weighted vest, I'm using bands, etc. to increase the intensity, and I'm always trying to keep the reps around 5 to 8 reps. But I also do higher repetition works just to increase the amount of reps you do. So if you want to train for 40 pull-ups, then you need to be doing at least 30 reps, 35 reps every once in a while. The barbell squat I was doing once a week, 3 to 5 reps, 3 sets of 5 reps. Cardio, so 2025 was actually a time where I was doing much less cardio. So that's also the reason why I haven't been able to break my VO2 max PR of 66, because I've been just doing a lot less cardio than what I was in 2023. So I was maybe very inconsistent with it as well, maybe doing it once a week, either HIIT cardio or zone 2 cardio. I was doing either some of these like sprint workouts, 10 sprints, 100 meters, walk back there and repeat. So trying to keep your heart rate elevated all the time. Or these Norwegian 4x4 HIIT interval workouts, 4 minutes of very intense focus. So let's say 85 to 95% of your max heart rate, followed by 3 minutes of 60 to 7%, repeated for 4 rounds. So it's a very brutal workout, but it's also very effective. Or I did zone 2 cardio, mostly cycling. I used a bicycle to ride around in the summer. So 60 minutes of low intensity. What's my plan for 2026? I think my workout plan is very good. Obviously, I'm getting results with it. So I'm not going to really change much. I'm just going to adjust it slightly. So I'm going to still do the calisthenics, but I'm going to increase the intensity of each session by doing more reps and adding more weight, but I'm going to work out slightly less frequently. So that's my going to be strategy for the short term. And I'll just adjust it based on the progress. If I'm able to do, let's say, 35 pull-ups, so that will be my new record, then it means it's working, right? If I'm not seeing that progress, then I need to adjust. Barbell squats, I'm going to just keep doing the same. I need to be more consistent with the barbell squats to reach the 400-pound squat. And that's been the limiting factor so far. I just, usually just work out at home with the calisthenics. So the going to the gym takes an extra step that I'm not always able to do every week. But I'm going to be implementing some sprinting and plyometrics as well. I think the speed training is interesting. And I think, now in my 30s, I need to start thinking about more these speed development as well, which declines with age. So I'm going to implement some sprinting and plyometrics. So jumping as high as possible, jumping as far as possible, those kind of things. Zone 2 cardio, I'll be doing, so I need to build a bigger cardiorespiratory base to reach the 4-minute mile and the 40-minute 10K. So I need a huge base now. So my, let's say, cardio base is a bit lacking compared to my pull-up strength and my leg strength. So I need to build a stronger base or rebuild it to get better at running. And that requires a lot more hours doing zone 2 cardio. I'll still need to do the HIIT cardio as well. I'll just do once a week the HIIT 4x4 protocol, but I'll do twice a week zone 2 cardio. And the reason I do the zone 2 instead of adding an additional HIIT is because I already have several days of high intensity training. I already have 3-4 resistance training days per week. I already have 1 HIIT day. So it's not going to be possible for me to add an additional high intensity training session because it's going to be harder for me to recover from. And again, I'm not like a pro athlete, so I don't have all the time to work out and I don't have all the time to recover. So I don't have entire days to dedicate to recovery, etc. So that's why adding the zone 2 is more appropriate because it's not as intense. I'm able to recover from it faster and it's not going to interfere with my performance with the barbell squat or performance with the pull-ups, for example. All right, let's move on with nutrition. So this is a very controversial, spicy topic always. I've been on the same nutrition plan for a few years now. So it's around 2,300 to 2,500 calories. I eat around 130 grams of protein. So I've reduced my protein from previous years. In 2025, I was eating around 150, 160 grams of protein previously several years ago, which would put me at the something like 2.2 gram per kilogram per body weight mark. But now I'm eating around 130 grams of protein, so 20% less than in the past. And this is around 1.6 grams per kilogram. So I'm 80 kilos, 81 kilos. So this would put me at this spot. Based on the research, this is more than adequate to support muscle growth. And as I said, I'm not trying to build muscle. I'm just trying to improve performance. And if you just eat a lot of protein, if I were to eat 200 grams of protein, then I would sacrifice the carbohydrate intake, which would reduce my exercise performance because carbohydrates are the best fuel for high intensity training specifically. And my workout plan is very high intense in terms of pull-ups, squats, and running, hit running, etc. So I do need the carbs to support that exercise. And if I were to eat more protein, then I would just end up eating less carbs, which would just be counterproductive for my exercise goals. And I don't need to eat more protein. I've seen that by reducing my protein by about 20% to 1.6 grams per kilogram, my blood markers have improved, my visceral fat has decreased, my gym performance has increased because I'm eating more carbohydrates, and my muscle mass actually also increased because 1.6 grams per kilogram is adequate for muscle growth. You don't need more than that. So yeah, if you eat 2 grams per kilogram, most of it is just waste. Carbs, yeah, I eat around 250 to 300 grams of carbs, so pretty high carb diet. And fiber is also high because I'm eating my carbohydrates from whole food sources, potatoes, fruits, etc., that have the fiber in them. So if I were to be eating, refined bread, white bread or sugar or something like that, then yes, the fiber intake would be much lower. But because I'm eating healthy carbs, whole food carbs, I'm getting also a lot of fiber. And in my opinion, fiber is one of the most underrated, it's not a nutrient, but it's like a food component there is. By increasing my fiber from around 30 grams to 40 to 50 grams over the last 5 years, I've seen better blood work, better gut health, better body composition, easier fat loss, greater satiety. So just, it's not because of the fiber, obviously, necessarily. Maybe it's other things as well. But there's a lot of propaganda about fiber being harmful online. And I do think that it's wrong. Yes, there are people who can't tolerate fiber because of certain gut problems, certain microbiome imbalances, certain food sensitivities, etc. Those are legitimate concerns, right? Those individuals aren't going to be doing good with a higher fiber diet. But personally, me almost doubling my fiber has only improved my health. And I'm, have perfect bowel movements once or twice a day. I don't have any constipation, no gas, no farting or anything like that. Everything is just good by getting these fiber from healthy whole food carbohydrates, fruits, berries, potatoes, those kind of things. Fat, so 70 to 80 grams. That's not a low fat intake. It's around maybe 25 to 30% of my calories. So the same way with protein, you don't need insane amounts of fat. This fat intake is more than enough to cover essential functions, more than enough to support hormones and satiety or whatever it is to improve the food texture and taste. So I'm not a huge fan of adding a ton of olive oil or a ton of butter or eating bacon or something like that. I've done similar diets in the past, low carb, higher fat diets in the past. They didn't work that well for me, at least. I do much better with a high carb diet. High carb, high fiber, lower fat, moderate protein diet. Moderate fat, if you were to be nitpicky about the percentages. So what foods do I actually eat then? Well, I'll share with you. I do like to categorize myself as eating a semi-Mediterranean diet, but it's not a full Mediterranean, classical Mediterranean diet as in the clinical research, because I eat a little bit more protein. I don't eat that much olive oil, and I eat more carbs as well. I eat mostly potatoes and other things like that. So I'm eating a lot more carbohydrates than the standard Mediterranean diet, but I do have a high polyphenol intake from vegetables, etc. So vegetables, broccoli, carrots, cauliflower, peas, beetroot, squash, pumpkin, berries, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, cranberries, something like that. Fish, salmon, herring, sardines, cod, etc. I eat fish maybe a few times a week. And I'm just trying to... So it's more reliable to try to get your omega-3s from an omega-3 supplement, in my opinion, because you're not going to be eating fish every day. You're going to forget about it. There's actually research that if you stopped consuming omega-3s for a few weeks, then your omega-3 index would rapidly decline, which is one of the biomarker that is strongly associated with longevity as well. So I think I just find it more consistent and more reliable to just take an omega-3 supplement, which I'm going to be focusing more on, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going to be eating fish every few days. Beans and legumes. So lentils, beans, chickpeas. Again, this is something that works great for me. I obviously don't eat them every meal, but I have no problems with these foods. I find them that they just improve my blood work over the last few years and my gut health as well. So I might be an anomaly, or it doesn't apply to all people, but for me at least, beans and legumes work very well. Improves my gut health, improves my blood work, improves satiety, makes me lose weight more easily. Meat, so I mostly eat leaner beef and game. I don't eat that much chicken, maybe sometimes. The same with pork, not a regular intake, so mostly like lean beef or wild game. Eggs, 1 to 2 per day on average, some days more, some days less. Dairy, I consume actually quite a lot of dairy, lower fat dairy, kefir, yogurt, cottage cheese, Greek yogurt. On average, like once a day, I have some dairy. Fruit, green bananas. So I like the starchier, greener bananas, higher fiber, lower glycemic. Kiwis, I like kiwis for dinner. Apples, oranges, and pomegranate seeds. Those are kind of my go-tos at the moment. And the carbs, my main carbohydrate source are sweet potatoes or regular white potatoes, and quinoa as well. I don't eat it very often, but maybe once a week. Drinks, mostly black coffee, green tea, around 2 to 3 cups a day. So coffee, I drink maybe 1 to 2 cups per day. Green tea, also 1 to 2 cups a day. So something like that on average. And I also drink chamomile tea and ginger tea in the evening. Some supplements that can be categorized as more food, protein powder, collagen peptides, and gelatin powder. So those are my go-to ones. So it's not a very restrictive diet. It's not very hard diet as well, I think. And it's been working great for me. It's sometimes hard for me to not lose weight for some reason. Maybe, obviously the intermittent fasting window also contributes to that a lot. But I've been doing intermittent fasting for 12 years. But this specific way of eating has made the intermittent fasting a lot more easier, at least for me. It's hard to not lose weight oftentimes. I just need to make sure that I eat enough food, especially if I exercise a lot. So supplements, let's talk about supplements. 2025, what supplements I was taking: astaxanthin, 12 milligrams a day, glycine, 10 grams a day, omega-3s, 2 grams a day, melatonin, 1 milligram a few times a week, trimethylglycine, 2 grams a day, magnesium, around 200 to 400 milligrams a few times a week, collagen peptides, 10 grams a day, and I cycle creatine around 5 to 10 grams a day. I don't take it all the time because creatine reduces your VO2 max gains, and I think it's better to just not take it all the time. You don't need to take it all the time. I'll take it only if I'm specifically trying to gain muscle or get stronger. What are some supplement stacks I'm going to be taking in 2026? Most of it is going to be the same. I'll underline the additions. So omega-3s, 3 grams a day, I'll increase the dose. Lutein and zeaxanthin, 20 and 5 milligrams a day, I'll be trying that out. So it's researched for eye health, reducing digital eye strain, and because I work a lot in front of the computer pretty much all day, many hours, so I just want to use that to protect my eyes a bit more. And there's been this research about circadian clock dysfunction and aging, with the circadian clock dysfunction being soon categorized as a hallmark of aging, in my opinion. So I just want to make sure that I protect my eyes from the excessive amounts of blue artificial light, which would damage the eyes and potentially damage the circadian clocks as well. But I am, full disclosure, going to come out with my own supplement line as well in 2026 quite soon. It's going to be third-party tested, high-quality ingredients, and the reason I made it is because I want to have a supplement stack that I trust. I know the ingredients. There's a huge problem with most supplements out there. They don't contain the ingredients. They're contaminated with heavy metals, etc. So I want to make sure that I control the supply line, that I'm taking the supplements that actually have the ingredients for my own health. So I don't want to take placebo pills. I want to take the stuff that actually works. And I'm going to also want to make it easier for myself. I don't want to take 10 pills a day or something. I don't take that many supplements, but I don't want to take a ton of pills. I want to make it easy, convenient, and I'm going to get the right dosages. Oftentimes, most of these regular supplements, they just don't have the right dosage that has been clinically shown to provide certain benefits that I'm interested in. So I'm creating it for myself mostly, but I think it will be also the best longevity stack out there, in my opinion. So it's going to contain one powder drink for certain ingredients, one capsule, and one soft gel. Eventually, the soft gel will come a bit later, but these three kind of core elements, and it will have, across all three of these, will have around 30 ingredients. 30 ingredients in a very small amount of things you need to consume at a very good price as well. So the price is insanely good for the value that you're going to get. And, I'll just leave it at that. I can't announce anything yet, but, you will be announced. You will hear about it eventually. Let's continue with sleep. So my sleep schedule in 2025 was a bit suboptimal. It was a bit hectic, mostly because I was having a lot of frequent intercontinental flights to USA, to Japan, to many other places, UAE, etc. So I was doing a lot of traveling, which obviously has a toll on your sleep and circadian rhythms, etc. And plus, I also was with some other important commitments that made me sleep a bit shorter. So on average, I might have slept maybe 7 hours. And my goal for 2026 is to just try to increase it a little bit. I'm going to try to get at least 7.5 hours. But, interestingly, during this year, I just stumbled across a lot of studies where it shows that 7 hours might be actually more than enough for otherwise healthy people, which, I've experienced myself as well. I don't feel deprived if I sleep 7 hours or even 6 hours, but I will try to get 7 hours, maybe 7.5 hours. So I'll definitely try to, sleep a little bit longer. But it's not inherent. It doesn't appear to damage my health in any way. And a few other videos will be out soon where I'll discuss this relationship between sleep sufficiency and longevity. Bedtime is always been quite stable, so 10 p.m. and I wake up around 6 a.m. somewhere there. I'll try to maintain it and be more consistent with it. So, a lot of times I might end up going to bed at 11 p.m., maybe 12, something like that because of whatever reasons. So I'll try to be more consistent with it this year. So the consistency of sleep is apparently as important as the total duration. So I'll try to be more consistent, and I'll also try to be more disciplined with the blue light. So wearing my blue blockers, dimming out the lights, not looking at bright screens. I'll try to be more consistent with it because of the circadian clock dysfunction and aging element that I discussed earlier, and because of protecting melatonin production, which is a powerful antioxidant hormone. All right, let's move on with the blood markers. So I've made some other videos about my results as well. You can check it on even on Twitter, where I outline some of these results. I'll just briefly go through the results. So as I said, the more comprehensive blood panel I did in May 2025, it was pretty optimal in terms of the major markers. Hemoglobin A1C, 4.9%. That's an excellent result. So pre-diabetes is 5.8%. So I'm well below that. The average person might have 5.5%. A generally healthier person might have 5.2%. And a person who is more controlled with their glucose levels will be 5% or lower than that. And my insulin as well is very low, 3.35. So you want to keep it below 7, for example. lipids, cholesterol, LDL 58, HDL 62, so higher HDL is good. Insulin sensitivity signal, lower triglycerides as well, 39. So I have very good insulin sensitivity, low insulin, low blood sugar, high HDL, and low triglycerides. My metabolic health is excellent in terms of that. Lipoprotein A, so this is genetic. It's always been kind of lower. It's been 2, it's been 3, it's been 4, 5. So it does fluctuate obviously a little bit, but it's being this low consistently. So I have at least favorable genetics in terms of lipoprotein little a levels, which I'm happy about. ApoB, so 58. That is a very good result. I'm not taking any lipid lowering drugs. I'm not taking anything that lowers cholesterol specifically. So these are all natural due to diet. And I think the biggest reason for that is because of the higher fiber intake, lower fat diet, lower saturated fat diet specifically. So this is just achieved with nutrition, these low ApoB. And yeah, the fiber is super underrated for cholesterol and lipids as well. HSCRP 0.1 in this particular test because it cuts off at the 0.1 mark. But I've had other tests that has 0.01, for example. Homocysteine, so this marker I've shared about as well. It was 12 2 years ago. It was 9 in 2024. And now it was a 5.97, which is pretty close. It's like, yeah, close to the most optimal result of 5. Homocysteine of 5 is the absolute best, but below 10 is already very good. Then liver function and kidney profile. So these are all green as well. So I'm not going to go into all the details with this. A few things to point out. So cystatin C is extremely good for me, 0.67. That's, can't get any better than that almost. And my EGFR is 112, which is also an excellent result. My creatinine, 0.94. So it's not high, it's not harmful. It's just high because of my increased higher than 0.8, for example, which is where it's been previously as well. It's higher because of a higher exercise load, higher muscle mass. And I did see that it dropped. This was actually after my bulk. So that's why it's a higher. I had more mass that I was carrying as well. So yeah, it's probably lower now a little bit. So creatinine is not a reliable kidney health marker because of the element of increased muscle mass and exercise raising the creatinine. So cystatin C is kind of a more truer marker of kidney health, which I'm more focused on. And mine is excellent, although my creatinine is also still good in that sense. Albumin 4.42 in this particular test. Alkaline phosphatase 58.6. GGT 10.7, which is excellent. All the other liver enzymes as well, low 20s, which is good. Testosterone 767, so not insanely high, not low either. Kind of, it's a higher than average, but it's not very high, if that makes sense. And to be honest, I think testosterone is overrated in that sense. Yes, it matters if you have low testosterone. If your testosterone is 200, 300, then yes, doubling your testosterone to 500 or 600 can be quite amazing. But above 600, 700, you're not going to notice a huge difference. Maybe if you're going to reach 1,000 nanograms per deciliter, maybe you will notice a huge difference. But I think, especially for maximal lifespan, having extremely high testosterone and other androgens is not beneficial. So there's a reason women live longer than men, and extremely high androgens, I think, are pro-aging, so to say. So I'm happy with the 767. It's a level that is beneficial for body composition. I obviously have good body composition and good fitness, and I also have good drive, good motivation. I have good energy. So I'm very happy with this above average testosterone. I have no interest in taking TRT. I don't need it. I have no interest in trying to boost my testosterone to 900 or 1,000, because I would need to eat more calories. I would need to do other things as well. Take some testosterone boosting supplements, ashwagandha, something like that, to try to squeeze more testosterone. But it doesn't really support any of my goals. And I have no things that would indicate that I'm suffering from anything in terms of hormones. My thyroid are also normal. So my T3 is always on the lower end because of lower calorie intake, doing some bit of fasting. So lower thyroid, I do think that is beneficial for longevity, as long as you don't have other side effects from having low thyroid, such as you're not gaining weight, you have good metabolic health, you have good lipids, etc. If you have low thyroid and you have high lipids, you're gaining weight, you just feel tired, etc., then that's something that you would want to improve to fix your thyroid. But if you don't have those symptoms, then the low thyroid might be actually more beneficial for long-term maximal lifespan. Now, hematology, different immune cells, I'm not going to go into details of that. There's always going to be a few things that are out of the reference range. These things just fluctuate a lot. One thing to note is my very high lymphocyte percentage, which is a more indication of youth, 52.6%. So it means I have a strong immune system, able to respond to things. My platelet count is lower end, which is good, lower risk of clotting, and all these other immune cells are also in the most degrees. I'm not really going into the details of this here. The same way with elements. So this is just heavy metals that I did at my retreat at the clinic in India. So these are all green, arthritis profile green, vitamins and minerals. So vitamin D is normal. My other nutrient intake or nutrient status is also normal, except B6, which is above the reference range. So I'm a bit higher than that for some reason. Iron levels are all good. So with iron, you want to be on the lower end as a male, especially. So mine is 103 micrograms per deciliter. So that's I think a good result. So very high iron levels might increase the risk of heart disease. And, that's another reason why men live shorter than women. Men have much higher iron levels than women because they don't menstruate. And, they don't cut themselves either. Nowadays, mostly if you're working in an office, you're not really, cutting yourself when lifting something or something like that. So very high iron levels, I do think, are also bad for aging and heart disease risk. So having it around 100 is good, is a good result. It could be even lower. I think if our iron level was 70 or 80, I think that would also be fine. It might be even better, but I'm just saying that slightly lower end iron is better than higher. What are some goals for my blood work? So generally, I want to maintain it. So it's more important to maintain good blood work than to have very good blood work for a short period of time and then fall off the wagon. So as I outlined throughout the video, I'm going to still follow my nutrition plan. I'm going to take my supplements, sleep, and do my exercise plan. So chances are my blood work will stay around the same. Of course, blood work fluctuates every day, but the general framework is going to be the same. Some specific goals that I have is omega-3 index. So right now it's 8%, which would put me maybe in the top 5% of individuals. But my goal is to get it to 10%, and that will be the top 1%. And this is the reason I'm increasing my omega-3 intake. It's very hard to increase omega-3 status. It might also be that me exercising more makes it even harder because, exercise raises inflammation at least, and omega-3s, your body might consume more omega-3s or require more omega-3s for that. So I might need to actually even double my omega-3 intake. We'll see. But I'll try to get it to 10%. That's the ultimate goal. Hemoglobin A1C, so average blood sugar and glycation status, 4.9%. That's already in top 2% of health individuals. And maybe I could get it to 4.8%. I'm not really particularly worried about that, or I don't think I need to. There's no reason for me to try to get it to 4.8%. And there's not very strong data that having it at 4.8% would be better than 4.9 or 5% for that matter. So, would be nice to have maybe 4.8%. Another one is ALP, so 58. That's maybe around top 5%. I could get it to 50 to get it in the top 1%. But, there's also not very convincing evidence that ALP has a huge role in longevity compared to something like hemoglobin A1C, CRP, or cystatin C, or VO2 max, or something like that. So yes, there is obviously some association with ALP levels, and my level are very good in terms of the general population, but it could be slightly better. It's just that I'm not really trying to specifically improve this number. I've seen people who don't exercise at all, and they have an ALP of 40, 45, which would, in some association studies, would be considered the absolute best, but in others not. So depends a lot what we're talking about. And as I said, rather than focusing on one specific marker, you need to look at the whole picture. Would you rather have a VO2 max of 60 or ALP of 45? Well, I would always take the VO2 max of 60 because the VO2 max of 60 has a much stronger and more consistent association with longevity and reduced mortality. And for me to drop my ALP, I would probably need to reduce my exercise, which I don't think is worth it. And I would also probably need to stop increasing my bone density. So ALP could be a marker of like increasing bone density or bone growth, essentially. So again, I don't think it's a good trade-off to not build bone mass, especially for some individuals who might have low bone density. Now, my bone density is already good. I don't necessarily need to improve it, but I would much rather keep the things that I'm doing rather than try to micromanage this one specific marker to get it 1% better. Albumin, the same. It's 4.6, 4.4, something around there, top 5%. Maybe if I were to get it to 4.8, could be better. But yeah, 4.8, for that, I would just need to increase my calorie intake or to eat more protein again. So it's a trade-off again. Albumin is the most abundant protein in the blood. So if I were to eat more protein, maybe I would see an increase in albumin. But again, eating more protein would have some other side effects that I wouldn't maybe want. Maybe it will increase my visceral fat. Maybe it will do some other things to my body composition that I wouldn't necessarily want. All right. And lastly, I'll cover some of these auxiliary routines. So just some bonus stuff that aren't super important. Obviously, walking is important, but it's not a separate section. So I'll aim to walk 10 to 12K steps every day. I've incorporated weighted vest walking as well already in 2025. I think it's awesome. I think it's a very good. It makes weight loss easier because you have to carry the weight around. And if you just wear even a small weighted vest, like 5-10 kilos in your everyday activities, like when you're working, when you're going to the kitchen, then that also has been seen to support weight loss and reduce the decline in metabolic rate that happens during weight loss. So I'm actually a huge fan of weighted vests now. And I'm going to get like a very light vest, 5-10 kilos, and I'm going to get a super heavy vest, 30 to 40 kilos for doing weighted calisthenics and hiking. So it's also kind of low zone 1, zone 2 cardio if you have a heavy vest and you're walking. Saunas, I've been doing them since I was born. Pretty much I've been doing them, since the age of 1, pretty much, from Estonia. And I'll keep taking them like 4 times a week. It's one of the most powerful activities in observational studies for reducing heart disease and Alzheimer's risk. It's on par with like cardiovascular exercise, in my opinion, although cardiovascular exercise is still better. Sauna is very close second. My protocol is like 20 minutes at 70 degrees Celsius, and that's it. I'll try to do some more ice baths, mostly because they just feel good. And I might get like a small ice dunk where I'll be able to jump immediately from the sauna to the ice. I don't think the cold exposure has that much evidence compared to sauna for health benefits, but it can still make you feel good. A raw cacao drink. So there's been some interesting studies about how consuming high flavonoid cacao during sedentary periods of time, so like sitting, prevents the decline in this endothelial reduction in endothelial function that happens when you're sitting. So sitting is bad, obviously, but if you consume high flavonoid raw cacao or dark chocolate, high flavonoid dark chocolate, it's easier with the raw cacao because you get more of them. But that pretty much helps to maintain better arterial health when you're sitting. So, for example, I might experiment. This is just a little bonus. I thought I might add something new I've seen in a recent study. So, yeah, I might implement more raw cacao into my daily diet so that, it's better for the endothelial function. And I'll also experiment with more hydration and electrolytes, because I'm going to be exercising more, sweating more, I might need more electrolytes. And who knows, maybe consuming more electrolytes and salt, which I so far haven't done that much. I've actually never really consumed electrolytes regularly. Maybe that's going to be unlocking my performance. Maybe that's going to unlock my 4-minute mile. Let's see. But I will probably need to get more electrolytes to support that goal anyway. And more frequent naps. So research about napping is also very bullish So people who take more naps, they have lower heart disease, greater longevity, as long as they meet also the physical exercise requirements. So yeah, napping is gonna be good for me to catch up on some lost sleep, essentially. Peptides, I'll maybe do PPC, especially if I might get injured from doing a lot of exercise. And but it's not something that I really don't need, I think. And I'm not really interested in other peptides as well. Maybe GHK, so copper peptide. I already use a topical copper peptide for skin benefits. So yeah, that's it. All right, so that's the end of this video. If you reached the end, then thank you for watching. I think this was very interesting, at least it was for me. I'll try to make more kind of this unique style content rather than just making a very generic topic content. I'll maybe try to implement more of these kind of unique videos I think no one has ever really done on YouTube. But if you want to learn more about how I think about these things, what's my gauge on the research, then check out this tier list where I ranked 100 health activities from worst to best. So it just outlines all these possible, the most fringe health activities, all the way to the most fundamental activities, and how do I rank them. So check out that video next.